Appreciate it. Got a little banner up front.
To wear the hat.
Yeah, it's like, oh, man.
Oh, absolutely do.
We'll call ourselves to order. If everyone would join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Dr. O'Neill?
Present.
Mr. Heater?
Present.
Mrs. Barnes-Griffin? Dr. Washburn? Mr. Lowe?
Present.
Mr. Irvin?
Present.
I threw you guys off, didn't I?
Yeah, I did. Don't forget about Mark.
Okay. CEO report.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Exciting time of the year. Had a terrific start to the school year with our opening days, ceremonies and events. We have our full faculty kickoff on Monday and just had a tremendous turnout where we got to, give an update on the status of the school district for our faculty and staff, but then also celebrate our persons of the year, our teachers of the year, our support staff of the year, our partners of the year, rising stars, our new teachers with less than 3 years of experience coming into our district, and then of course we recognized our district-wide teachers of the year at that event too. Just a great morning to celebrate our district and getting our faculty back together. And then, of course, our first days of school. We were out and about all day on that first day, and I got up early and rode the bus with the Longfellow kids, and just had a tremendous time. It was a terrific morning, and you go there to see the kids, and they're excited to be there. Everything is spick and span. The floors are shiny, and fresh coats of paint on trims of doors and different things. But it just a terrific day. Kids were excited to be back. Teachers were excited to be back. First half a week and a half, or I guess maybe a full week now, has gone very well. Had our challenges. We continue to work through our transportation, dismissal ins and outs of the parking lots. Those first few days with parents dropping kids off and picking kids up is always a challenge, but those are slowly coming together, and just finalizing all of our yellow buses and MITS buses, making sure those are running smoothly. And most of those issues are the issues that we created when we added that time. So some growing pains there for our elementary folks especially, but our partners are tremendous, and we're continuing to work with them and our families to make sure that everyone gets what they need to make sure we get them to school. Can't have a beginning of the year celebration without talking about our marching band. Just so proud of those kids and staff for being State Fair Band Day champions. Had an undefeated season. I want to say that's probably the first time, maybe since 14. I can't quite recall if we were undefeated in 14, but I know we were undefeated in 06, and that was probably the last time we had an undefeated season in Muncie. But had an undefeated season and won the best music, best marching, and best effect in the morning shows, which was just a tremendous accomplishment for those kids and staff. Just super proud of them, and if you got a chance to go by and see them working in the summer, they really dedicate their summer to be a part of that, and it certainly showed this year, absolutely. Quick update on the locker room project. Brad, we're moving right along with that. We're nearly completion. I think they're doing their final punch list on the locker room project. Locker room, concession stand, team meeting room, restrooms on that new project at the stadium at the high school. We believe we're going to have electricity this week. which is exciting. We were getting a little nervous about that, but our friends at AEP have pulled through, and we believe that we'll have electricity this week and hopefully can do a dry run with some activities in that building before our first game on August the 23rd. That's a Friday night game. At that Friday night game, Dr. Bell and her team has organized an alumni educator recognition ceremony. We're going to pull in all of our educators across the district that are MCS alumni and recognize them as homegrown talent at the ball game and just celebrate them at that first ball game. We're really trying to pack the house at that first ball game. It's against another school in our county that we're going to be playing. So we like to fill that place with purple and celebrate our homegrown educators at the Alumni Educator Recognition Ceremony. So, all right, I think that's it from me.
Any questions for Dr. Reynolds?
Oh, man, I thought, man, I'm gonna walk in the marching band was gonna be.
Yeah.
I was going to bring the trophies in, and it wouldn't fit in my truck. Yeah.
Is there a special day today for you as well?
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
It's Dr. Reynolds' birthday.
It is my birthday, yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Everyone has been very nice to me today. We had some snacks, some trail mix, and some cupcakes today. And to have one of those on your way out. They are. I didn't want you to take the cupcakes, but no, that's okay.
Well, thanks for bringing the cupcakes. I must have missed mine.
Well,
Are you 50?
no, not quite. Just on this side of
You're 49 forever, right?
it. Yeah, yep. I'm gonna stick there.
Okay.
Chuck, just a quick question. How do you think this week or last week went compared to historic? I mean, what do we think obviously that we always are going to have some challenges, but were there any surprises that we didn't anticipate or?
No, I would say just looking out across the team too, they're pretty typical challenges. You know, we always bumps in the road with as far as transportation and dismissal and arrival. Those are always just typical bumps. It felt really smooth. Other than that, it felt a little more.
What do you think was really good?
Man, I think we hired early with our teachers, so we weren't scrambling at the finish line to get our classes covered. Folks that we hired, I tell you, and I remember just a few years ago, guys, that we had that new teacher orientation at Southside, and Southside kind of has three sections of that cafeteria, and 1920. Two of those sections were filled with new teachers, 90 plus new teachers. And I want to say this year we had, if I counted correctly, we had about 42 teachers show up. So we utilized about a third of the cafeteria for the new teacher orientation. And we got them early. So those early hires, best and the brightest. Great. It was exciting. We did something new this year. I took them on a bus tour of our district. And we drove around and stopped by every school and talked about the neighborhoods, talked about some of the areas and some of the history that feeds into those schools. Showed them the great places to eat in Muncie and hang out and where to catch shows and different things. So it was a good day. We added that to new teacher orientation, but really thought it was smooth. I mean, once the kids were in the buildings and the welcoming crews that we had to all the schools, I mean, it was just really nice.
Great.
Really nice beginning.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bell, for all your work on hiring your team, getting that done. I mean, each year, from my perspective, has been a little easier. I don't know if that's a good feeling to have
Right.
or a dangerous feeling. It's
Yeah.
probably a combination.
I mean, there's just as much, anxiousness on those opening days as ever, but, I think we all recognize how important those opening days are for our staff, for our kids and our families and our community. So I mean, we take them all very seriously and we do lots of prep work to make sure that we're ready to go. But those opening days were really, really terrific days.
Well, as a student and as a family of a student, you you never forget the first day of school.
Yeah.
And so it's really, we have a responsibility
Yep.
to deliver on that. I mean, it's monumental.
Yeah.
I mean, I still vividly remember 1971 at Winchester Village Elementary in Perry Township. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think our families appreciate being welcomed to our schools, and I thought the schools all looked really,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. Maintenance team had the buildings ready to go. And
Yeah.
President Mearns and the Ball State team welcomed families in, and people recognize those smiling faces when they
Yeah,
arrive.
absolutely. Any additional questions?
I'll just say that, you know, as a parent, I'm a senior now at Winston Central, but
Woo!
I thought I was pretty smart to do some technical things. I had a whole meltdown in the guidance office. Just trying to get the form, upload my documents. But the thing, so I just say that out loud, you know what I mean? And so then, just on the first day of school, like social media, just watching all the first day of school pictures, right? Just the excitement and the outfits and yeah, just all of that energy. So yeah, it looked like it was a great.
Andy had a terrific one of a little guy heading into preschool. His mom and dad, I think his mom and dad were former students of mine. I think I recognized him if it's the same family I'm thinking of in that picture. But they were starting preschool, I believe. It was a preschool picture, and they had their little information board, and he was smiling ear to ear, and his parents are smiling ear to ear. They didn't have any tears, which was shocking, but took their first day of pictures out, first day of school pictures. It was awesome. Awesome at Longfellow. Thank you.
Anything additional? And no public comments? Okay. We'll go to the consent agenda. And within the consent agenda, I want to recognize a retirement of a very important person who gave many, many good years to Grissom Elementary School. Donna Newland, building aide, is retiring.
Yep.
So,
That's a great lady.
is that immediate?
Yep. Yep.
So wish Donna the very best in her retirement. So
Absolutely.
with that, any additional questions concerning?
You had one change on.
Oh,
that
yes, I'm
section.
sorry. Within the consent agenda, under resignations, Laura Norris is going to rescind her resignation as speech language pathologist at Longfellow and is going to move to part-time. So please note that change in your packets, and Cindy will note that change in the minutes as well. With that, any additional questions concerning the matters in the consent agenda? Hearing no questions, would request a motion.
So move.
Hear a motion? Now hear a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, and we're on to action items. Permission to advertise the 2025 budget. Mr. Jerome.
Thank you. Tonight, we'll do a brief permission to advertise slideshow for you with about 20-plus slides. We're going to follow the state guidelines. That's our first thing we do on the timetable. Tonight, we're doing the permission to advertise. That's what we'll be asking the board for permission to advertise this at the end here. We'll come back on August 27th. That's considered the public hearing for the budget. And then we'll do the budget adoption on September 10th. Just a brief reminder of why we do this. We're up to the 2025 budget process. That's what we're doing tonight. It's basically an 18-month look. It's the last 6 months of 2024, and it's the 12 months of 2025. We're on a calendar year basis of our appropriations for next year, but we always have to look at the spending in the last 6 months of 24. So that's what we're doing. Basically, just a quick reminder of which funds are we talking about here, and that's the tax-supported funds are the ones we're talking about in our 2025 budget. The education fund, the operation fund, and the debt service fund, those are all basically related to either tax-supported funds. The rainy day fund, we talk about it. We ask for appropriations for rainy day. It's not supported with any tax rate. And I also just listed some of the other big funds that we have that are big funds, but it's not included in the budget process. The cafeteria fund, not included, self-insurance, the various bond project funds, or all the federal and state grants like Title I and so forth are not included. I listed textbook rental fund. This is a change for 2025. It will no longer be a separate fund. It'll be rolled into the education fund. And I'm assuming that was done because we now receive money from the state for textbook rental directly because we don't charge parents for textbook rental. So we get about $160 per ADM count. It comes back to us as a separate revenue source. So that will take effect January 1, 2025. Some of the next slides I have up there, just a brief reminder, what makes up the education fund. An education fund, about the best way to describe it, is almost everything that happens in a school building. That's pretty much all the expenses that are inside that education fund. It's considered the direct instruction, teacher salaries and benefits, the school principal, their support staff, all those types of expenses, curriculum, even technology is rolled into education fund. What is the main revenue source? The main and only revenue source for education fund, it is not supported by local taxes. It comes from your school funding formula, which is based on your enrollment. So it comes as the form of the state basic grant. We get that revenue each month. And I just gave you a brief estimate there of what the approved education fund budget was in 2024, the year we're in, $39.4 million. We're going to advertise a $44.1 million of spending in that particular fund. That's because of more revenue, so we're asking for more spending. And we do not need to appropriate, or it's not included in the actual budget, what the transfer is from education to operation fund. So that doesn't count against you from taking money out of the education and putting it in operation. You're just taking it from one pocket, putting it in the other. So therefore, that doesn't count against you on spending. And you're limited to only 15% of your total revenue that you're allowed to transfer from education to operation. I just wrote.
Could you go back to that prior?
Yeah.
That prior slide for just a second.
Yep.
So we're advertising an education fund budget of 44.1 million, correct?
That's right. Right.
And then so we would be assuming the state approved 44.1 million.
Right.
The transfer is 15% of 44.1, correct?
Yeah. Right. And right now, that's a little over almost $7 million, $6.9 million of additional spending, if you will, to make the transfer into operation.
So I thought the statutory limit was 15%.
It is 15%.
So why did we put 13.5?
I can go higher. I mean, that's
That's an estimate.
just an estimate. So
Just the,
right.
And the inclusion.
we won't go more than 15%. So
Okay, I just wanted to check.
Yep. That's absolutely correct. We can go up to 15, and we typically are right there, right under 15%.
I really wanted to prove I wasn't asleep.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. It's your night, you know. I could talk about budget as long as you want.
Oh, I know.
I'm excited. Aren't you excited about school finance as much as I am? I always like to list some assumptions that go into this. I always think you need to know what makes it up. The first thing you always try to do is figure out what is your enrollment estimate, because that drives the revenue, which then drives your spending. And that's the same process I've gone through every year I've done this. You always need to look at your estimate of revenue first. Where's your enrollment going? We've tried to project it basically being flat, where it's not falling off the table. And that's really what we've done here tonight, projecting pretty much flat revenue. So if you get a little more revenue, if enrollment's higher, then that's a good thing. So what we've done here, we're still projecting revenue from the state for that basic grant, about a little over $47.5 million. And I try to break it down between a fiscal year and calendar year. The state gives you the revenue based on a fiscal year basis, even though we live in a budget world of calendar year basis. But don't get that confused with our financial statement audit for Ball State, which is on a fiscal basis. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So that third bullet point there, we expect our total current calendar year education expenses of about 50.9 million, because that included about the 44 million of appropriation plus the transfer. So that's why it looks like it's 50 million. Still expecting a surplus position and still expecting an ending cash balance over 15 million at the end of December of 25. And that's just where we're projecting. Obviously, a surplus is going to be better than that. That's fine, but we are not projecting a deficit.
So quick question, the ADM count, there's a set date in the fall that
Yes.
you're to take the official.
Right. October 1st is in the fall, and then February 1st is considered spring.
That's where I was going to go.
And
There's a second one.
we're now on a 2-count ADM during the calendar year. It used to just be 1, now it's 2. And they basically impact your state basic grant after every 6 months based on enrollment. And that was done a few years ago to help those school districts that had growing enrollment. If your enrollment was going down, you didn't like that because they'll hit you. So anyway, that's how that works.
On
Okay.
the cash flow surplus of 40,000. So.
I just always like to make sure I budget almost right to the edge. I don't like to show big surpluses because I don't want.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
But that is where we've traditionally been, is in that neighborhood.
Yeah. We always project at least in a surplus position. And obviously our cash balance in the education fund will show, hey, we're over 15 million. So we've had some really good previous years, and we still expect some good years here in the future.
So even if we had, for some unexpected reason, enrollment to be less than 4951, we would have the ability to absorb that.
Right, because the way that I would have forecasted this, and I did, it was at a higher head count of personnel. We had our higher personnel in that we had at the end of May. We're actually down on our head count versus where we ended at the end of May. We're probably down about 8 teaching positions right now, probably down 10 or so support staff. So that's a positive thing that helps your spending then on the next go round, the next calendar year budget. So those are just some of the assumptions I built. I always like to show sometimes the pie charts. It just lets you see the biggest pieces of the pie in the education fund, and that's roughly the almost 51 million of spending. So even if you're sitting far away, it doesn't matter. You can see the bulk of that spending is basically that's salaries. That's the big blue piece of the pie, and then the benefits are the red. So almost 80%, 75% there is related to salaries and benefits. That's typically what your education funding spending is. There you see the green piece. Well, that's the transfer to the operation fund, and that can be up to 15%. Because really, it's a headcount thing. The bulk of your education fund is your people that you have in there, the wages and benefits. The next little graph I like to show is the bar graph of just your.
One question.
Oh,
I
yeah, go
apologize
ahead.
for the interruption.
That's fine.
On the salaries, statutorily, have we met, are we meeting the 45% threshold for our teachers?
Well, actually, now we're up to it's the 62% rule.
62.
It's the 62% rule for the fiscal year that just ended. So for the fiscal year that just ended, it was now up to the 62% rule. So what we mean by that is now it's wages and benefits of the teacher. So you take your teacher wages and benefits, where it used to just be teacher wages, and that's why you had to meet 42% of your state basic grant. So basically that the state revenue you're getting, you had to be spending at least 42%. Now they've bumped it to 62%, and it has to include wages and benefits, because you had a lot of school districts that were upset or had issues. They couldn't meet the 42% rule. They said, what about our benefits that we have? So we have not received our report back officially from the DOE based on the fiscal information that was provided. We should be well over that rule of this,
Okay, thank you.
the wages and benefit.
The state payback loan is in that as well. If you see that teal piece of pie there,
Oh,
that is, that's not necessarily common to other districts.
right, that's right.
So,
That's true.
no,
Yeah,
that is,
Oh, the loan.
that's our loan.
Yeah,
I see.
that's right. Clear up almost at about 11 o'clock there on the pie chart. The payback of the state loan. That next bar chart, I just like to show, where's that education fund cash balance going? Of course, that used to be called the general fund a few years ago. And yes, that used to be negative. That's right there in the middle of the page. That was clear back in 2016, 17, and even the tail end of 18. Those were negative balances. That was really true. Of course, you all know that. And that's why, we're sitting here we are now with the changes that happened 6, 7 years ago. And you can see we've had continual increases in that education fund balance. So things have gotten better. The next bar chart just shows the cash flow that we have generated each year. And the one thing I'd comment on the cash flow by year, sometimes the cash flow is going down by year in the education fund because myself as a business manager, I'm transferring money out of the education fund into rainy day, which counts against your cash flow for education fund, okay? So try not to read too much into that, oh, gee, 6.6 million in 19 and 20 went down to 2.7 million where we were putting 4 and 5 million a year into rainy day. So we were, as long as we're positive, that's a good thing. And if you remember that slide number 6, we're still showing over 15 million in that education fund balance. So still trending the right direction.
We're gonna be to the positive in 2024.
Right, exactly. Yep. The next slide, that just shows the trend. Like I said, even if you're sitting from across the room, that's the trend of your state basic grant revenue. And it has, from left to right, you're going from the year 2015 to the 2025 estimate. It's obviously, it really had a big spike there in 2023 because the state legislators changed the funding formula where they provided more money to schools. And we were a benefactor of that. So even if your enrollment was flat or didn't have a big increase, they put more money into the formula, and you're seeing we benefited from that. And so it's still, even though we're projecting flat revenue, we still think we'll get around the 47 million in 24 and 25. Okay, now I want to talk about real briefly, the operation fund. We'll get to that here. These are the expenses to operate the district. I know it's called operation fund. That is what it is. It kind of also includes almost everything you have in an administration office like this. It includes the business office, district administration, HR. It includes your transportation costs that we have with the outside bus company. We pay our utilities out of this, security, maintenance, facilities, custodial items. Also pay for little white activity buses or the fuel for those. And this is also the fund that we're under the most attack, if you will, just from the tax caps just really hurt this fund a lot. So we'll see that trend here in a moment when we'll put up some other graphs. But just to give you, on the bottom of this particular slide number 9, I just show you where this has gone down from 2022 through our 2025 advertised budget. We were spending about 12.6 million in 2022. And we didn't just magically chop $2 or $3 million of operational spending out of our operational needs of the district. Instead, we started offsetting it against rainy day. That's why you'll see in 23 we went down to 10.2 million. 2024 is 10.7. This next year we think we can float it up to about 11.7. And I don't just dream up these numbers. You put it through what's called the 18-line schedule, the 18-line statement, and it kind of forces how much money is available for you based on your cash balances and expected revenue in that fund, and it kind of tells you this is all your appropriations you're going to have available to you. And without picking on Eric or Chuck to explain the 18-line schedule, because I know you went through the school finance class at Ball State, we'd love to have more money there, but we can't. Okay, this is just all we can get, and for that, and Dia took that class too, probably. So that's really exciting. But we'd like to put more. Would like to put more in this line item, but We just cannot, based on the cash balances of that particular fund and the expected revenue. In parentheses there, I just mentioned for you, what is the tax cap? That means that's the amount of money we're not getting. That's the amount of money tax cap we're not getting. In '24, it's a little over 11 million. The guesstimate a little over 11.5 million in '25. So that's why you'll see that trend going down because if you don't have the revenue, you can't do the spending in the fund. Okay, just some, the next slide, number 10, that just kind of shows you, I wanted to show you the big, the next slide after that, I'll show you the pieces of pie of those sections, but this is what makes up, these are what I call some of the notes and assumptions of the 25 operation fund. You guys have a much further look over there on that side. They have to see the screen clear over there, but the number one item is maintenance, facilities, custodial, a little over 3.7 million. That's the biggest piece in that particular operation fund. Transportation comes next, then utilities, security, property and casualty insurance, and so forth. I'm basically asking operation fund appropriation of about 11.6 million. That's a little bit more than last year, but yet it just fits within all we can ask for. Okay, and you're asking, well, how are you going to do that, Brad? How are you going to spend 12.6 or 12.8 or 13 million of operational spending? Would still in 2025 would still expect to have to take some at a rainy day. I mean, that's still the process we're on. That slide number 11, I wanted to show you just by virtue of a pie chart. That biggest piece of the pie is maintenance, custodial, or buildings. That's almost 32% or 1/3 of the chart. That's there on the upper right. The red area, that's transportation. That's what we pay, basically transportation cost to Auxilio, the outside bus company. The green chunk there is utilities. That's, I think I showed that chart to Chuck the other day in my office as we were talking about AEP and how much money we spend electricity, about $2 million a year. Utilities make up about 20% of that particular total. So that's a big item. Doesn't leave a lot left for doing projects or doing big things in your building. That's why we end up having to do bond projects or spend it out of federal ESSER funds and so forth. Okay, chart number 12, that's just a trend on operational fund spending by year. And this particular bar chart goes from 2019 on your left, clear to 2025 on your right. And clear on your far left, it was 13.8 million, then 13.5, and then 13, now 12.6 in 2022. And you can see it really dropped in 2023 because if you remember the way these funds fit together on your tax cap, we were paying off in debt service a lot of our GO bonds, a lot of our big debts. So we didn't have as much money to allocate on the tax revenue. It was not going to go to operation funds. Instead, we paid our debts because you only get so much on your property tax levy. So anyway, 2024, we'll think we'll be spending just under 12 million and a little bit less in 2025. So,
Brad,
yes,
excuse the simplicity of the question.
It's
but
okay.
How do we increase? That number can increase a couple of different ways, right?
For the spending or the appropriations,
The appropriations, the value, property tax values can go up,
right?
or
Right.
the tax rate can go up.
And the one limiting factor in operation fund, we are limited by what we advertise. They limit you. You can only increase your operational fund levy by 4% each year.
Okay, but
Yes.
point being, all of those things that make up that pie
Yes.
are things that change in price, change in cost.
Yes.
So, one thing that we could have to think about doing over time is increasing that levy, a portion of what those increases could be in order to keep up with increased cost of providing those operations.
Right. And
That's not a suggestion.
Right,
Please
sure.
don't take it that way.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, the well is not
there's only-
that deep. There are really only those two ways.
there's only about a couple things you can do. You can reduce some of that spending reduce some of that
Sure.
spending inside those pieces of those pies, try to figure out the best way you can to carve up the available revenue you have for the expenses you need to spend in that operational needs of your district. So we're continuing to look at that. We're continuing to look at that because this just gives us the overall ability to spend up to what we're going to ask for, almost 11.7 million for 25.
But
And,
when
we're
was,
not- we're not-
when was the last time we did increase the levy? Do
Uh,
you know?
For operation fund? Well, the levy is allowed to float upwards. It's just because of the cap, it reduces the net taxes we get. That's the hangup. The levy continues, the levy goes up and it's allowed to go up, but the tax cap is going up too. So the tax cap hits the operation fund more than the debt service fund.
And I guess my whole point to asking the question is just simply the rock and the hard place that we find ourselves, that our
Sure.
costs of providing 9 buildings,
Yes,
the costs associated with transportation, the costs associated with maintenance and repair and utilities continues to increase. And so, I mean, I think it's of note that given what we've experienced over the last 3 or 4 years, we have continued to not have to go back and ask.
oh,
And that may change in the future because, anybody who runs a household knows the cost of running a house is
Right.
more expensive.
right.
So, I'm complimenting the fact that I
Right.
think management, I think the district has done a good job of trying to reduce spending where they can. Trying to utilize every dollar we can with the help of the transfer. And it's not just those expenses that have been managed, it's the others. So again, roundabout, it's a compliment, but it also identifies the problem that we and other districts have.
Yeah,
are gonna have.
right. I mean, Muncie continues to have that impact of the tax cap, and that's just the way it is.
And that
for
impact
us.
for us is we are one of the 6 or 7
We're in the top 10.
greatest impacted
Yes.
tax cap
We are.
communities. And so,
Yes.
again, I just think that's a compliment to how you all have fiscally run the school corporation at the same time improving what we're doing. So, but that's going to be a challenge.
Well, and we know, as the Baker Tilly consultants have told us, you can't keep spending on a rainy day forever, but we've been very fortunate to build up that surplus in rainy day like we did to almost 14 million to really help us in this fashion. And that's where as much surplus we can get in education fund, we slide the money over to rainy day to continue to help us until we get past some of these big hurdles down the road. And that's really paying off the state loan, which that's part of that.
Sorry,
So-
does the 11.6 million that we're budgeting for operations, does that include the transfer from,
That includes the revenue on the revenue. The 11.6 is just the spending in the fund.
spending the fund? But
That's-
is
yeah.
the 11.6 inclusive of the transfer from the education? So
this
that's
this particular budget includes that transfer of the 6.9 million in the revenue
Yes,
in the operation fund, and then it also includes the layer of the property taxes in this fund to be able to support 11.6 million. Yes,
correct.
right.
So, and for folks watching at home, the school cannot unilaterally increase revenue to the operations fund. There is no practical means to do that unilaterally. There are methods
Right.
where it can happen,
Right.
but in terms of the question on raising the levy, that does not raise your revenue because of the constitutional caps.
That is right. That is right. The one thing that has helped us a bit in the operation fund, of course, that's from a revenue standpoint, that's where all the interest income goes. And we have been very blessed the last 2 years to over $600,000 and $700,000 of interest income goes into the operation fund as revenue. So that's a help. We didn't have that 4 and 5 years ago. So
And then explain as simply as possible for me, the impact, why Muncie is in the top 10 of those that have the most profound impact of the caps.
Okay. In the simplest way possible?
Simplest way possible.
Okay. That would probably be the particular slide. I would just want to talk about the tax cap impact.
Yeah,
Of
you
the
can
th-
just get there at
Okay.
normal flow.
Okay, that's no problem, because we talk about, it's a 1% for homeowners, 2% for agriculture, and 3% for all other. And those tax caps help the individual homeowners in Muncie, because that means your property taxes are going to be limited to a certain increase. So that helps the individual homeowner. But because there's, let's say, not as much growth perhaps in Muncie, or not as many taxpayers anymore, or big factories, or that property tax burden keeps being spread among who's left. And if you don't have as many people to spread it among, or as many homeowners, or as many factories paying taxes, then the tax protects you, but we as a recipient of those taxes, we start being limited on that. So, and even if you have right up and down South Cowan Road here, you have a lot of factories, new factories, but they're in TIF districts, tax increment financing district. Their property taxes aren't going into the assessed valuation. They're not paying property taxes for X number of years, is what I'm saying. So I don't know if that helped or not,
It does.
a little bit, but
What happens when assessed values go up?
that helps us, because when assessed values go up, that means that the tax rate can go down. So it helps us when the tax values, assessed valuations in our district go up. So that is absolutely true. It helps us.
And we've
Because-
seen some assessed values go up over the past.
Right, because that helps drive your tax rate down. And as we'll talk about that on the debt service, we like our tax rate on debt service to go below 50 cents. It's right at 50 cents. We want that to keep going down. So, anyway, that was, okay, slide 12, we're ready for slide 13. Debt service fund, brief explanation of debt service fund, that pays for your long-term debt in the district. The DLGF, Department of Local Government Finance, that's the budget arm that approves our budget. You're only going to get what you have as debt to back it up. So I can't just sit here and say, I would sure like to have a lot more tax revenue. Okay, I want to show 13 million. Well, if I don't have the debt, they're not going to give it to you. So you have to have a legitimate debt. So it's capped, if you will, in a way. I can't just put, I'm going to have $5 million of temporary borrowing interest, okay? Those used to be a loophole that you could a few years ago. Can't do that now. And then you would pump up your debt service and then slide it over into rainy day. Well, you can't do that anymore, okay? That was a loophole that got closed. So we only budget and advertise debt service for what we actually have debt to back it up. Slide 14, it just shows you your total principal debt outstanding, clear back from 2018 on your far left to June of 2024. And the numbers basically show at one time we were at 38.5 million of outstanding debt. Now we're down to 21.6 million on the far right. So that's even with some of these projects we have done by selling bonds in the last couple of years. But some of those last two bond offerings we've sold, we've paid them off in like 1 year. So that's why we've continued to pay off debt. And then obviously last year, we paid off the remaining GO bonds, and that was a little over $7 million. So
this is the lowest the debt has been at MCS
well, I would,
since December of 18.
oh, absolutely. Because we have also not had any cash flow loans, because in December of 2018, we still had $10 million of a cash flow loan we had to pay off in 2018. So that didn't even count, but that was paid off at the end of December. So we've not even had to get any cash flow financing since then either. So, and that would have required, I would have had to budget for temporary borrowing interest to cover those temporary borrowings. So we have certainly have the lowest level in the last 6 years of outstanding debt. The next slide, number 15, that just shows you the $12 million loan. That's with the state of Indiana. That's not in debt service. So, but that's just, I just wanted to show you that. That money is deducted from our state basic grant. Obviously, we drew down. It was almost like they set that up almost like a loan for us that we could draw. We drew it down completely in $12 million in 2019, and then we had to start paying it off in 2020. So we're continuing to pay it off, and this shows you over time it'll be paid off down to zero in June of 2028. Where we're sitting right now at the end of December of 2023, we're at 9.9 million. At the end of December, that'll be down to 7.9 million because the payments are extremely backloaded. We pay a lot more with each year that goes by. So that's coming also out of the education fund. So slide 16 and 17, I just talked briefly about the capital projects plan and the bus replacement plan. These are still required by the state of Indiana, even though those are really built into, or as I call it, embedded into your operational fund spending. Capital projects plan, we really don't identify specific projects over $10,000 just because we're not able to. We don't have that kind of money in the operation fund. I think just as a point of notation for you, we have spent, because we had to prepare this for Ball State a few days ago, we have spent over $60 million in the last 6 years for capital facility needs out of a variety of funding sources, with including ESSER funds, the insurance proceeds, yes, 2 bond projects in there for the football stadium, and then obviously for the Muncie Fieldhouse is the next project. $30 million from ESSER funds helped our facilities quite a bit, but those are not really part of the regular capital project plan out of operation funds. But at least we have done a lot as the board and Ball State inquired. We have spent a lot on capital needs. Slide 17, the bus replacement plan. That's embedded inside operational fund. If we were going to buy a lot of white activity buses, this is where we would do it. The school board gave me that permission, I think almost 2 years ago, to go out and buy 2 brand new white buses. I think a year later, they canceled my purchase order from Ford Motor Company. And so I re-upped and did it again, said, okay, I'll keep waiting. So I still haven't got the 2 activity buses. The one update I can give you is I did go out and find, and I did issue a purchase order, and I did buy 2 used white activity buses from a dealership in Kankakee, Illinois. They're model 2020. So at least I can get those for half the price to put them in our fleet. And I don't know who's making the road trip out to get them, but whenever they're done being painted up, we will go get at least 2 buses to add to our activity bus fleet. As I say there, we own 6 buses right now from 2007 to 2010. We're not quite ready to put antique plates on them on the back, but they do need to be replaced eventually. And we do have 4 of them now in service to start the year.
Ford hold your price on this?
Oh, no. No, I'm sure that'll go up. I've never seen anything like this in 25 years of being a school business manager where you just can't order an activity bus. I don't know why this is so difficult.
How many can we seat in an activity bus?
I'm sorry, how many? Oh, 14. 14, and then when you get a lift put on it, then you seat about 6 or 7, depending on how they configure the seats. So, and now, of course, they're running, the purchase order you approved for me, was that 2 years ago, was $120,000 a piece. And I think the one with the lift was $124,000. And the used buses we were going to get are, I think we got those for in the mid $50,000 range. So 2020. So I'm really excited. Those are practically new.
So have we given up on the new ones?
No, not yet. I'm still in line, but it's just,
So are we still relying on that approval that we did
I don't.
in 2018?
Yeah, clear back. Yeah, you gave me board approval.
address that again for the.
We may have to.
The State Board of Accounts.
We may have to. I mean, I'll just be glad when they finally tell me I'm really in line and they have a build date. Right now, they don't have a build date, so.
Yeah. Well, you'll be shocked when they show up out there.
I know. Well, yeah. I don't even know where they're coming from. I don't even know now where they would be shipped from if the new ones do come in. But slide number 18, I just show you the advertised tax rate. That if that's too wonky to look at, then go to slide 19, and that just shows you in a spreadsheet form that you also have at your desk or at your place what the advertised rate and tax rate look like. We're basically advertising a budget, including the rainy day, for 2025, a little over 70.3 million. That's compared to an advertised budget last year of 65.7. And we're actually operating this year with a little over $65.4 million budget. So that's the main increase is because of education fund. We're getting more revenue in education, so I'm asking for more spending there to support that. You'll see on the bottom there where the direction of assessed valuation is going. I think Jim asked me that earlier about assessed valuation. The actual assessed valuation, that's $1.9 billion. Okay, and you're saying, Brad, why do you only advertise like $1.6 billion and then 1.6 billion again? Because we're basically directed to do that by the DLGF to protect the school district. You always advertise at 85% of the previous year's actual number is what you do. That produces an artificially too high tax rate, produces an artificially too high tax levy, but as we'll get into here on the next slide, you advertise high, and you know they're going to cut it. So that's because you cannot do the opposite. Once you've advertised that budget, you can't make it higher. So that's just Business Manager 101. We advertise the tax rates high, they will be cut. Once advertised, a budget cannot be raised, only cut. A tax rate cannot be raised either. So, and there I just give you a couple of those bullet points. What happens if your assessed value goes up? That drives the tax rate down. If your assessed values go down, like if you'd have a big factory that closes, haven't seen that here. I haven't seen that here in Muncie in my 6 years here. If a big factory closed and that made the rate go down and that really affected your levy. I know at one time the Muncie Mall was the largest taxpayer here for Muncie schools, and that was always significant if they would change or close or whatever. And here's my little bullet point once again on the tax caps. 1% of the if you're a homeowner, you have a 1% tax cap. If you have any agriculture, it's a 2%, or some other residential. And if you had some long-term care facilities, you're on a 3% cap on some other properties. So that protects all of you who own houses and property in the Muncie School District. The tax caps do benefit you. So that's good. It's just, it hurts us as the district. Slide 21, we're almost getting there. I just wanted to show you, you're thinking, gee, Brad, you're advertising a really high levy for your property taxes. We're not going to get that. So that's just, it's advertised high. It's going to be cut. The tax cap right now for us, a little over 11 million. We only receive about 53% of what of what they actually give us as a levy. You're only going to collect about 12 million. So the next slide maybe shows a little bit better. Slide 22. That's your property taxes we've actually collected over the last 9 years. And 2024, that's estimated, but you can see that gets back to your levy. When you ask the question about a levy really means property taxes, okay? If you hear us talking about the term, what's the levy? Well, that is what are your property taxes going to be? So this is what we're actually collecting on that levy. The property tax we've collected, 12.3 million is what we think we're going to get this year, which is about $500,000 higher than last year. And you can see for a good time or a good section of years, it was just a little over $10 million from 2018 to 2022. We didn't have much growth in property taxes. So
What's the bump in 2017?
I don't know. I can't give you that. I can't give you a good explanation on that of why it bumped.
It's a serious drop.
That was a big drop, but then it settled back to the 10 million. So Slide 23, just, it shows you the summary once again of the total budget we're asking to spend. We're asking to spend those levels in education, debt service, operation, 44 million in education, 11.5 million in debt service, 11.7 million in operation. That's an actual spending budget, a little over 67.1. We're also going to do 3.2 million asking to spend in rainy day. I don't think we'll be spending that in rainy day, but we're asking for that appropriation in rainy day. Slide 24 is just some final questions. If you, just because we advertise the revenue, we don't get it, okay? We don't just get the revenue. If your funding formula goes down because your enrollment goes down, you don't get your advertised revenue. You're only going to get what it's tied to your enrollment on your education fund, and the property taxes determine what gets split into your debt service and operation fund. I've mentioned bus replacement and capital projects. Those are really embedded in the operation fund. Debt service, it just reflects our outstanding debts we have. And we're in the 6th year of the $12 million state loan, and you can see it's going to be $2.1 million we're going to pay back in '25. My largest variables in the budget, that last bullet point, that's your enrollment projections, your tax cap impact, employee headcount. I think the headcount is trending down. The tax cap impact is always there. Enrollment projections were basically just almost flat. I mean, we don't have a good number yet to report to the full board on where we think our enrollment count's going to be.
We were up last year, right? A little bit, up about 100 students. We don't have a sense yet.
No, I'm cautiously optimistic about enrollment right now. Just gets a little, the pockets in the seats is a little easier to count at the elementaries just because you're transitioning to one classroom, but the secondaries, we're still.
And I understand traditionally it's, for whatever reason, been a process that we really don't have a good handle on until Labor Day.
Right.
Or after Labor Day.
Right. But just on the class counts and anecdotal observations in the classroom, I would say that we're going to be very close to what we were last year.
We need to go out and find someone to.
Need to go out and find someone.
That's
New
just,
white bus would pick some kids
yeah,
up.
that's just right under the or that's just under the $5,000 enrollment, basically. Basically, at the end of our presentation, we always ask permission to advertise this. If you're wondering, what does that mean to advertise it? You have a piece of paper in front of you called the Form 3. That's what the notice to taxpayers looks like. Just telling the public that we'll meet again August 27th for the public hearing. We'll meet again to adopt it on September 10th, and you'll see the dollar amounts we just discussed basically right there embedded on your sheet. The property tax cap estimate, you see that's embedded from the state. That's listed at 12.2. My estimate of property tax cap for my Baker Tilly folks, I was using 11.5 million or whatever. That number is always usually too high based on anecdotal evidence there. But basically, that's what I'm asking the school board tonight, to give me permission to advertise this. We will certainly go into some more detail perhaps on October 22nd when we have a work session to talk more about perhaps a 5-year look ahead in our operational fund. What we're doing here tonight is just satisfying the state guidelines and state timetable. Dr. Reynolds and I did meet and go through this pretty extensively a few weeks ago as we were putting together our presentation for tonight. And from a school board, at least we are trending in the direction that we have a cash balance. We're not sitting here without a cash balance. We're not sitting, I didn't have to walk across the hallway as I have years ago in my previous district to say, hey, I don't see how I can be in a surplus position at all. And we are not in that kind of situation here. So we still have cash balance, and we still have funds, and we still expect to be in a surplus position.
Thank you, Mr. Jerome. Any questions for Brad? Very good report. Appreciate it. Would entertain a motion on the permission to advertise. So moved. Hear a motion, do I hear a second? Have a second? Any additional questions? With that, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Emergency repair,
Okay.
Westview.
Okay, thank you. I don't like to be confronted with emergency repairs. We don't really schedule emergency repairs. They sometimes find us. And we had a water leak out of some rusty, leaky pipes in the ceiling at Westview on the south hallway that was not part of the renovation for the previous 2 years. And this is what they call the two-pipe system coming in and out of your heating and cooling system. They're about 4 inches across the diameter. They're dual pipes, and they were leaking. You just touch them, and they would just fall apart. So we were confronted with the issue. Are you going to fix them and repair them now, or are you going to wait till fall break? And we decided we can't wait. That was a recommendation of my facility maintenance people, my facility, and some various contractors that we were trying to work with. So we had to make some really quick decisions, and we said, let's go for it. Let's do it. And they thought they could get it done. They did. I've never seen such a project pulled together with 3 different subcontractors for 400 feet in a hallway that spines out into classrooms. We had to gather the manpower, find the pieces and parts, demo it, reinstall it, deal with electrical and things in the ceiling, and they got it done. They started school August 7th. And so I had to come to the board to just give me that permission to do it, and I signed POs that day and gave verbal approval and signed POs not to exceed $400,000. I talked today with Resolve Tech, and what a vendor that's helped us so much. It's going to come in about $280,000. I've never between Resolve Tech, Houston Electric, and Pride Mark, they did a wonderful job for us here at Muncie Schools. We were able to have school. We didn't have any disruptions. As you mentioned today, Eric, when you were there in the school, and I think you were there in the school, everyone has been there. They just had like a normal day. And it didn't look that way on August 6th or 7th. And I just couldn't believe it that they could do what they said they could do for us. And when you could go down there that first day after we signed that PO and we had about 30 people working, I knew we had a chance to get it done. So normally that would have taken a month, perhaps, to do that. And so anyway, just asking permission to make that repair. It's now done, but I just need to have Brad have this permission to get this done, to keep the show on the road. So that's what we did.
Any questions regarding the repair? Nice work, by the way. No questions, but entertain a motion to approve the emergency repair.
We approve.
Any questions? Okay, moved and second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's the beauty of emergencies. The outcome is,
I mean, I'd like for you to give me approval, but,
take it out.
take it out.
Do
I don't know.
So, question, have we assessed our other buildings regarding the pipes?
No, I mean, not to that extent. And that's something I think that Jim had suggested too, and it's like, it gets down to scheduling those emergencies or trying not to have them, and that is something that would need to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if we could get eyes on some of those other buildings and really start looking at a sequenced maintenance plan
Right.
for whoever's the most likely to fail next. And,
Right.
that's the only way we're going to avoid.
Right. Yeah, I don't like that. We don't like, as we talked today, Dr. Reynolds challenged us as our administrative team, what did we like or not like about the start of school, or what things could we do better next year? And it's like, I sure wish we didn't have so many last-second shots we got to do on these basic, starting up some of the buildings because of some of the emergency repairs or that we had to do at Westview, or just moving the portables at Longfellow, which we thought would have been done a few weeks before, but it happened, and they had school in there yesterday, right? Or was it today? Today they started school last week, but they were able to occupy the portables today. So I don't know, a lot of last minute projects.
On the bright side, that thing ruptured in total, you wouldn't be in the building today.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been serious
And I
damage.
think, I think.
You saw the pictures. I mean, we had all the pictures, and you described it as probably an original 1980
Yeah.
kind of pipes that corroded and just, they were going to give up the ghost eventually. And,
Yeah, and that's my concern
right.
for other buildings, is how many buildings have aged pipes and ones that we want to be, can Paul start taking a look at those?
Yeah.
I got a question regarding that, and this may show my ignorance, but is there a way to examine these pipes in other buildings or whatever without literally physically getting up in the areas or wherever they're flowing? And look, there's no electronic, there's no technological way to do that?
No.
It's just
Usually,
fast and get up there and look.
I hate to say it, usually the way you start discovering it is a leak. It drips through the ceiling tile or drips through a ceiling light. And sometimes, like you said, out of sight, out of mind, you don't know you have a problem. And so it's, like you said, it's part of a preventative maintenance step to try to look at some existing, because in some of the buildings, we have done total renovation with some of the HVAC equipment. Is 2019 in 4 or 5 of the buildings at that time. So we were replacing that. But there's always something.
What's our heat setup in our buildings?
What's our heat set? I can't tell you that. I mean, it's on a temperature control system, but
A 4, I think there's typically a 4-degree
a window.
span that you can adjust it in the room, but I think they monitor that on a computerized system,
Yeah.
digital system.
Yeah.
Where is this person?
I think Paul has the main control of it. The SSC team does.
Right.
But
Sounds like we have a pretty good handle on it. Somebody somewhere is keeping an eye on our temperature. I was just looking for you, some utility savings. And
Switch
we
under.
don't even know where the thermostat is.
No, we don't.
So, okay. Well, that comes from growing up in a house with Ron Williams, my father, who monitored the thermostat like an ogre.
I have one of those.
Put a cage over it.
got a locked box over there.
Never mind. Okay. We're on the dialogue and future recommendations. Want to thank everybody for a start to the school year, which by all accounts has been pretty smooth. I do know that, as I've said to our fellow board members, change can be hard, but change for the benefit of our students and their families is something that the board is duty-bound to undertake regardless of the challenge that it raises. And one of those is the addition of additional instructional time for our elementary age students to address issues of literacy, English language arts, and mathematics, and adding 15 minutes to the school day, I understand, has created some challenges and hardships. Thank you all for bearing those to the extent we did our best to communicate, but to the extent we may have missed some folks, the board's apologizes for that oversight. It certainly was not intentional, but understand also that this change was not undertaken just simply for the sake of change for its own regard. This was done with the best interest of our learners in mind. It will add effectively an additional 2 weeks of instructional time for those young learners who we absolutely have to have in a position to make their way in this world. And those 2 weeks, while it may seem like a little, it's a great deal when you're learning how to read and other tasks. So thank you for bearing with us on that. We appreciate it. There may be more changes at some point, and we will do our best to communicate those and undertake them in a thoughtful way.
So, Jim, do we know the impact of bus service with Tilson closing down for a month?
I do not,
We do
I,
not know. Okay.
I know that we've talked about it.
Yep.
Okay.
But I don't think that it's been determined yet, Eric.
Yeah. I don't know that, we've had a conversation with Auxilio and to see what that impact will be, but I don't know that they have
Okay.
flushed that out yet.
I know, I did talk to some folks, and I understand that there were real safety concerns about the workforce out there on Tillotson, that there had been already some accidents, so they're just gonna shut it down entirely. I would also report watching educational journals, the national media. We were in front of the curve on the cell phone policy, so thank you. My understanding anecdotally is that that has gone well for the most part with the students.
Yep.
And watching my own children with their phones, it is, I'm convinced they are as addictive as my mom was addicted to Benson and Hedges back in 1972. So they have an addictive quality to them. I don't think I have anything further today. Does anybody else have anything? I do want to thank Brad that's a really good presentation. Very
you.
much appreciated. The work that goes into it. Anything else? I don't think we have media here. Anybody want to move to adjourn, or you guys want to stick around?
Move to
You don't wanna leave, you might do.
That's right.
All right, we're just taking care of our learners.
I love it.
Move to adjourn.
We've got a motion. I hear a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
You do wanna know about his, how his, policy.
Right.
I'm like, well, we'll find out. You know what I mean? Like,